So my friend Stephen Martin, he called me up and he said to me, "Hey Abra, do you want to talk about how you became a herbalist and how your own personal health story was involved in you becoming a herbalist?" I said, "Sure. Why not, Stephen?" Especially Stephen, who doesn't like to talk to Stephen. So then we made a podcast. And then something happened. Some people don't want to hear my voice, and they say, "Oh, she's been silenced." But, that's their idea, not mine. So he got some letters, and it wasn't so nice. And, anyways, I'm going to tell my story. And if they send me letters, I'll just send them back. Okay, so here's the story how I became a herbalist. So I grew up in Toronto, in Etobicoke, on a road called Sweetland. And Sweetland was just off Blueberry Crescent. It was a very sweet neighborhood. We had a big old maple on our front lawn. It was the last maple of the farm that had been there not so long before I was born. And, my family's not really plant people. So I'm kind of like, Well, my one brother is. He grows a wicked garden. And it's so organized. Anyways, but, they really aren't. So I kind of go along, and I ended up becoming very fascinated with tea throughout my teenage years. I tried every kind of tea I could possibly find. And I had lots of tea parties. And of course, they weren't just tea, usually. We tried lots of different types of plants, during those days. And then I moved to France, and I was living in Paris, and I met people who were using tisanes, and they were just using them really, casually, like, here's a tisane for sleep, oh, we just drank a lot of, wine, and oh, here's a tisane for your liver, it was just like everywhere. And it was really lovely, and it was simple, and and they were so effective, especially for children, So then I left France, and I came back to Canada, and I kind of wandered around, and did some more traveling, and through a lot of the states, across Canada, Australia, and then I was interested in plants, but I was mostly interested in just experiences. I just wanted to have lots of experiences. And then I came back to Canada. I was back in Canada, and I met my teacher, and that was probably one of the most amazing days of my life, and I am forever grateful to him. And what was happening, my teacher was a traveler. He traveled endlessly. He, stayed in no place for more than, sometimes we had him for 9 months straight, and that was pretty special. But mostly he was just on the move. He liked to see things, he liked to explore, and he was kind of an odd traveler. He liked to travel really slow. So anyways, he was traveling a lot, and it really inspired me even more. So off I took myself to Asia. And I'm traveling around Asia, had a great time in Indonesia doing batik, almost outstayed my visa because I was so into batik. And anyways, had to rush out of Indonesia before I was deported. And anyways, I ended up going to a Buddhist monastery in Malaysia, and I was there for a few months, and I was like, you know, I I just really could not get over the fact that my shoulders were a major distraction to the mugs. Now, I was pretty cute back then, you know, I get that, but like, I just could not believe it. And it was so hot. So I left. And then I really kind of lost my focus. I was like just wandering around Bangkok, you know. Anyways, ended up on this island and on the east side of Thailand, and hung out there for a while, and I probably got my mosquito bite there. Because right after I went from there, I went to Vietnam, and I was in Vietnam, and I mean, I was in Saigon, and we were doing stuff, you know, different stuff there. It was like, yeah, it was really interesting place. And all the way through this, you know, there's herbal medicine, right? Like, there's the guy with the monkey in the cart in the morning that has this herbal drink, and, you know, you just drink it every morning, and you just go all day, no problem, right? Like, it was like everywhere. There's people just doing that kind of medicine. I remember in this one place, they had forest bats hanging, these huge bats, like they were massive bats, hanging on a post and upside down. It was like it was awful on this congested street, like the diesel, like you know, you wiped your face and your hand was black with diesel. It was a crazy place. And you know, they're just like, the bats are like, oh, this is for bronchitis. You boil this up and drink the soup, you know? And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I would boil it up. Anyways, I felt so bad for these bats. So anyways, so medicines everywhere, different types of medicines, seeing all sorts of different things. And so anyways, I end up in Saigon, and I'm gonna go to Angkor Wat in Cambodia, and it's like, I go to the Cambodian embassy, I'm feeling fine, I'm sitting there waiting for my visa, and all of a sudden I'm like sick. Like, I can't stand up for the pain, like I'm hot, burning up, like I'm just soaked, and I'm kind of hallucinating, you know. And so anyways, the Red Cross is there because they're on their way to Cambodia too. You know, that's a sign when the Red Cross is waiting for visas too, about like what kind of territory you're going into. Pay attention to stuff like that. Anyways, so she says, oh, you just have you have malaria. Go to the hospital. There's lots of medicine. You'll get the medicine you need, and then you'll be ready to travel in 3 days. And I'm like, okay, great, you know. So off we go to this hospital, and like it's now, you know, and also I was like really sick, so sometimes I'm like, this is really how this happened, you know. And it was just I just remember walking through this hall, and there were people laying on the floor everywhere, you know, like sick people all over the floor, and some big wooden beds with people in it, but no mattresses, you know. Like, it was just like, whoa, what kind of place is this, you know? So then I go into an exam room. I have my own room, you know. Being white has its privileges sometimes, and which is kind of friggin' scary when you think about it, right? Like, there's people, like, it's what's going on in this place is not nice. And anyways, the doctor speaks English. He worked for the Americans during the war, so anyways, we've been talking English with this guy, and I remember I was just like, I couldn't stand up for the pain. I was just like, my body was just being like broken into pieces, and I laid down on this cot, and I'm like to my teacher, I'm just like, help, like in my mind. And then I was bathed in this radiant blue light, and I sat up, and I looked at that doctor, and I knew that doctor was not a good doctor, and I walked out of there, and I went back. Anyways, that lasted, I don't know how long, but I, very clear, I just blue light, boom, okay, I'm okay. I walk out of there. And anyways, 4 days later, I'm back in the place. And I'm in a room by myself, and I wake up, and there's a nurse sitting there looking at me. And I know she's thinking, I wish she would just get on with it and die because I've got other things to do. And I'm just like, oh man, where am I? And like, anyways. So I don't know how long I was there, maybe 3, 4 days, I don't know. It's very hazy. And so all of a sudden these two guys show up, and this other nurse who was like, sometimes you meet angels, and she was an angel. And she's like, comes and she takes care of me like she's, she was an angel. And so she comes and like makes me wake up, like gets me awake and gets me looking, and awake. And these two guys come in, and they're Vietnamese, and they had been refugees in Canada. They came to Canada. They lived in Canada. They were from Vancouver, and they were opening up business. Vietnam had just opened to the West. They were going to open up a business between Vietnam and Vancouver. And they're standing there, and they're like, we'll get you out of here. Where do you need to go? And I'm like, Singapore. I had a friend in Singapore who worked, or her husband worked at the consulate in Singapore. So I'm like, Singapore, get me to Singapore. And so I give them like 500 US cash, which is a lot of money, and my passport, which and off they go. And they came back like 4 hours later. The nurse had me, bathed and dressed and packed, although I don't know where all my stuff went. I lost so much stuff. And they drove me right onto the runway, put me on the stairs up to the plane, and I'm on the plane, and then I'm in Singapore. Yeah, so, and so then I ended up, Singapore was where I almost died, and I was very sick for 6 weeks in multiple organ failure. And oh, what I really want to tell you about is my doctor at that time, because he was a real healer, and the thing was, I think I learned a lot about healing from him. And he was like a cowboy, right? Like, he was American, and he for his career, he went around to places and set up infectious disease clinics. He was an infectious disease specialist. And anyways, he's he was a fierce guy. And that fierceness in him, I had so much respect for that part of him. I just, like, he didn't take from anyone, like, and he was and he taught me about wheeling and dealing, right? Like, he always wanted me to have more food, and my digestive system just wasn't working right. So we had this huge, like, okay, I won't have this procedure, and you can put my food up that much, right? Like, we and then he told me later, when I was better, he said, I used to just make up that we had to do those things to you to get you to increase your food, right? Like, he was just anyways, some nights were really bad nights, and he just sat there, you know and a healer can be with another in pain. And I really need to say that, like, because I see people who can't be with another person in pain try to be healers, and it's a nightmare. So if you can't be with another person in pain, like go do something else. Like you've got lots of gifts and talents. Anyways, so he taught me a lot. And anyways, he told me also he'd never put more antibiotics in anybody than me. So I just think I was this great guinea pig. And he found, you know, my fierceness meant his fierceness, and he thought, okay, I can keep you alive. And that's what happened. Yeah. So anyways, I walked out of there at 85 pounds, and he wouldn't let me fly for a while, so I had to like hang out in Singapore, which Singapore, if you have to start eating again somewhere, Singapore, it's got the best food. I've ever been anywhere. Food, oh my God, in Singapore, yum, yum. So anyways, I'm there for a while, and then I ended up back in Vancouver. And I walked into, and I was like 85 pounds, you know, I couldn't go up 5 stairs. 5 steps, I had to stop on the 4th and rest, you know. And I all I'm told is I need protein. I need to eat meat. That's all I'm told, right? And so I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do here, you know. So I go to a health food store, and a woman is very kind and generous and quite concerned and very helpful, and anyways picks out this for me and picks out that and picks out all this and this, and before you know it, there was a counter full of drugs, well, supplements, right? And I was like looking at them, and I'm thinking, well, that's, I don't know, like I'm not really a pill person. And I'm looking at all this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And she tells me it's $500, and like I have like no money, and I'm like, okay, well, thanks, you know. So I go down, and I walked down to the beach, and I sat there, and I sat on the beach for about 3 months, and that was the medicine I needed, you know, breathing the ocean, you know, that was it. And then from there, it just kind of, and then I ended up living in a forest for 10 years, and the forest healed me deeply, 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 deeply. Yeah. And so then I eventually I thought, well, I have to do something in the world, I guess, you know, because I didn't really have that much interest of like being in the world. And my teacher kind of threw me out and said, you got it, you're done, you go, you're cooked, like you go do it, like. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyways, it's a wild world out here. And yeah, so that's how I became a herbalist. After he did that, I thought, well, okay, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I'm going to be a herbalist. So that's how I became a herbalist.